Alex, thank you so much for joining us here today to talk about Writer.com. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I am as well.
Alex, let's start with the key first question here, which is what inspired the creation of Writer.com? Talk through a little bit of the founding story and talk about the problem you're solving and how generative AI uniquely helps solve that.
Sure. Both of our founders, May Habib and Wasim Al Sheikh, are actually not native English speakers. Wasim is a Syrian refugee. May was born in Lebanon, ended up moving to Canada and learning English there. And they've always cared a lot about writing, and they've cared about quality, right? So Wasim actually, he learned English when he went to school for computer science in Lebanon and got stacks of 1,000-page textbooks about coding, and they were all written in English. And he didn't speak English. He actually ended up writing a program to try to summarize them to help his studies. And whereas May, was born in Lebanon, moved to Canada, went to Harvard, and was an editor at the Harvard Crimson. And so both of them have actually spent their entire careers trying to help people be able to communicate more effectively and write well. And so they actually initially got together when they were both working in Dubai and ended up building a company that at the time was focused on ensuring that there was great writing and consistent writing happening in digital products, right? And as generative AI advanced and they saw the potential, they saw a much bigger opportunity to help leverage that way more broadly. So when transformers were invented by Google, like the critical innovation when it comes to large language models, they saw it was time. So they created a new company, which is Writer. And as that technology was evolving, they initially focused on ensuring great writing across companies. And so it was very focused on ensuring high quality by aligning everyone who writes at a company around brand voice, the right terminology, tone, inclusivity, all these things that mark out companies that really care about brand and about quality to be able to govern that and manage that at scale, even for non-professional writers. And so that was their sort of starting point. In the meantime, generative AI was coming along with leaps and bounds. And as they assessed what would be needed to truly enable companies, especially large companies, to be able to really take advantage of generative AI, it was pretty clear to them that they would need to be able to sort of control the whole stack, if you will, right? So that was the only way they'd be able to really ensure the kind of quality that their experience with real brands indicated like would be necessary to have it work. They built their own, and we built our own language model from scratch. So we're not using OpenAI or something off the shelf. We built our own technology for being able to bring a company's internal data in and have that inform the results. And we built ways for companies to build, the right UI for each use case, right? The UI you need to help analyze a lot of customer data and find interesting trends is different than the UI you might want for, rewriting your product description pages or generating top of funnel blog posts. And so that ability to really dial it in because they understand the level of quality that people expect. And that's kind of been the common thread. So we've been around for 3 years and fortunate to have a lot of great customers who've help us understand what's needed to really operationalize AI in their companies. And we've gone from kind of strength to strength. And so far that hypothesis about the importance of quality at every level and security at every level has been sort of the reason why we're in the spot we're in.
Wonderful. I've talked quite a lot about, one of the barriers we've had in personalization is content variation to then use in personalization and so forth. And I, one of those who feels generative AI is going to potentially provide a great unlock in personalization, not so much around targeting and segmentation. We've been working on that in the industry now for quite some time and have built personalization solutions that are pretty effective at, honing in on key interests and segments and then being able to target those customers within the commerce experience, within marketing and so on. but content variation has been a bit of a limitation. So I can see that not only creating, a version of the content that's in the brand voice, but then being able to create variations that then target different segments or different opportunities you're trying to do from a marketing and communication perspective. I would imagine that's a key aspect to what writer.com can really help support.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's definitely been one of the bottlenecks to being able to deploy more sophisticated segmentation and personalization. And the ability for language models like the one that Writer uses and has built to be able to scale that is definitely a use case that we see a lot of our retail and e-commerce customers use. And so what we found is that certainly it's great, the average language model might be able to give you a few different variations of content, and that's great. But again, going back to that theme of quality, what we see customers want is they want output that is trained and reflects what they have seen perform for their business, and not just holistically, but across different distribution channels, right? And their own e-commerce platforms, other e-commerce platforms, and then cross-reference that with different segments and what might perform well for different segments within those. So those permutations start to add up to dozens, if not hundreds, of variations. And so the ability to not only create different variants there, but to actually generate them based on what has worked and your learnings and your ongoing learnings within different segments and channels, that's really where we see a big unlock, right? And that ability to scale that out. And while there always needs to be a human in the loop, and we do have customers who've gotten to the point where it's so dialed in that they trust the output and basically look at it later on. It is really critical to be able to do that, and it's a big unlock, and it's something we see customers rapidly taking advantage of.
Wonderful. I think it's terrific. I think it's a big opportunity in this industry to, again, sort of enable some of these tools that we've been building to actually start to target and personalize communication in addition to products and so on. Let's talk about the day in the life of an e-commerce creative professional, 5 years from now. How do you see AI and writer.com fitting in to their workflow and their day-to-day?
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. I think we're still in the early stages, right? So most folks are in. We have customers who have gone well past experimentation, but everyone is still getting to grips with what's possible and starting with high value use cases, and then exploring what else is possible. I think what we see a few years from now is that the folks who are working in this space are going to be able to use language models in a few different ways. So the way that we tend to think about use cases for generative AI, we break it into create and transform. So that is generating content or outputs or insight, repurposing or transforming them for different use cases or segments or channels. Analyze and research. So that is using language models to be able to interrogate your existing data or content to answer questions that allow the business to move more quickly and hypothesize more things and do more testing and analysis. And then governance. So about using these models to help ensure that all the writing is on brand, the correct terminology is being used, no matter who is at the wheel, whether a human is writing from scratch or using an AI tool. And so if we take that kind of create, analyze, govern framework, I think we'll see from the analyze side, we'll see people using language models to quickly ask questions of the data and be able to identify and ideate around potential new segmentation options and personalization options. So for example, to have someone who is maybe not a born and bred analyst be able to say, looking at these spreadsheets or this output from our platforms, cross-referenced with our creative to that segment in the last 6 months, what trends are we seeing? What language tends to crop up most in high-performing copy? All those types of things that you can ask more ad hoc, open-ended questions without necessarily having to have all that data cleaned and structured to answer the exact question that you want weeks beforehand, right? And so those types of things are going to allow people to move more quickly in identifying new opportunities, spotting trends, those types of things. So there's lots of analysis use cases and democratizing the ability to do that. On the create and transform side, we've already talked about the ability to kind of enable personalization at scale or support more complex and potentially effective segmentation strategies by creating variants of that content, taking content that exists in some formats and turning them into others. So we have lots of customers using our recaps capability to take audio or video content, maybe it's podcasts, maybe it's conference sessions or whatever it might be, and push a button and have it listen to that audio or video, transcribe it, pull out key takeaways supported by quotes and insights. And then with one click, they can turn that into social copy or bullet points for their sales or marketing teams, or, again, lots of other potential use cases. So that ability to get more leverage out of the content that's being created, whether that content originated in audio, video, text, what have you, is a super powerful use case. We already have customers using us to quickly optimize product description pages, right? So we have a customer like Victoria's Secret had identified an opportunity to improve both unbranded traffic and click-through on product pages by optimizing for SEO. And they were so dialed in after we trained on examples of their content that after they tested, as a good e-commerce professional, they said, okay, let's have our humans rewrite 100 of these SKUs per these new guidelines. Let's have Writer generate 100 of them, and then let's have Writer generate another 100, but have our professionals edit them. And they found that the third option worked the best, right? The AI generated, human edited or touched up performed the best. But they also found that the AI generated did great. And so when they're staring at 6,000 SKUs, all of which could be optimized for SEO, they said, great, let's go ahead and run all 6,000 SKUs through Writer, our trained custom template with Writer, get that new copy, push it live, and then have our writers go back or our professionals go back and make changes, to the most important ones. And they got, 23% lift on click-through, 40% increase in non-branded traffic. That part isn't solely attributable to the generative AI, but it was a huge component of it. And so those are the kind of things that, rewriting 6,000 product descriptions by hand would have been not a pleasant task, would have taken months. And in the meantime, they have much higher value things that team was able to do as a result of having generative AI available to them. So I think you'll see folks being able to focus on higher value activities when tasks like that can be largely automated without compromising quality. And then the governance side of things. So again, we have the number of reviews and compliance reviews and legal reviews and all those things that bottleneck merchandise from being on the shelf, as it were, can be greatly compressed if you're using AI like Writer to be able to govern all that terminology and compliance language and where there ought to be footnotes and exact wording at the point where people are drafting it or the AI is drafting it. And so we see people doing that all day long today. And again, it's not high value work. It's critical. Can't push stuff without it. But if you can cut the number of cycles there, again, you're seeing this theme of like being able to focus on more interesting, high value, needle moving activity than the day-to-day work. And that's also the part that your people enjoy the most, right? And so you get this nice lift. There needs to be humans in the loop. This isn't designed to replace professionals, but it is designed to help them be able to get more done, hopefully by taking some of the more necessary but repetitive aspects and being able to scale them out. So I think a few years from now, you'll see that. And then beyond that, I think you'll also see by that point, we should be able to help operationalize and orchestrate some of those workflows using generative AI. So moving from language models fulfilling tasks to language models helping orchestrate the entire process and integrate from tool to tool and with all the right checks in place. And again, that can speed up time to market and remove some of the more painful aspects of trying to make sure that everything's buttoned up before it gets into market.
Wonderful. Well, we're out of time, which is unfortunate because I had a number of other questions I wanted to get to, but but that was fascinating. Those of you who are joining us in person, obviously reach out to Alex, and those on the live stream, check him out. I think there's a lot of interesting capability here that is worth investigating. Thank you so much for your time, Alex, and for joining us here today on the live stream.
My pleasure, Brian. Thank you.